All right, so in this video, I want to talk about how to get ahead of 99% of people. And I know that number might sound a bit unreasonable. I know it might sound unrealistic and it might sound like an exaggeration. But by the end of this video, you will understand that this is not an exaggeration. By the time you finish this video, you will understand the exact steps you can take in the next month or 2 months or 6 months or whatever to become ahead of most people, to get ahead of 99% of people. So I want to start by saying this: we now live in what I call a low status society. And whenever I say a low status society, pretty much what I mean is that across the board, at least in the West, across the board, everything has declined in value. The IQs of people have declined in value. And when I say like IQ, I don't necessarily mean that like numbers wise, people's IQ have decreased. I'm sure if you took like statistics from like today or whatever and from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and actually did like an IQ test on the average person, the average IQ is probably higher today compared to 10 years ago or 20 years ago, however many decades ago. However, the difference is that people nowadays don't use those high IQs. People act dumber. They do dumb stuff. Therefore, as far as I'm concerned, most people have a low IQ. Actually, on a side note, before I kind of get deeper into this video, I was watching an interview recently. There's an old bodybuilder. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Mike Menser. There's an old interview with Mike Menser, and he's kind of talking about fitness. He's talking about health, and the way that he speaks, and this is him at like 28 years old or like 31 years old, something like that. The way he speaks and the way he articulates the things he says is so advanced compared to 99%. And this is a bit of an exaggeration, but compared to most people in the same age group nowadays, he articulates so well. And you sit there, and whenever even like I've seen just general interviews of people back in the day, like their version of street interviews. The average person back then seemed to articulate their sentences and make points far more clearly than people nowadays. There wasn't so much slang, at least from what I can tell in the few interviews I've seen. There wasn't so much slang. People were to the point. People knew how to express themselves in a certain way. People understood nuance. These things don't exist anymore, at least in the grand scheme of things. If you looked at a street interview now, you can pull up a random street interview now. People nowadays don't even seem to know what country they live in. This is not an exaggeration, actually. This is like legitimate. This is true. If you looked at an average street interview now, you ask people what countries are nearby. Name 3 countries, name 5 countries. People don't seem to know. It's fascinating because now we live in this era where there's more technology and more access to information. And the barrier to entry to this information is essentially gone, and yet somehow people still seem to know less. Compare that to a few decades ago. You can ask someone, name 3 countries. They would easily list off 50 countries. They probably knew the entire world map quite well. I'm sure not everyone did, but a lot of people probably did, or at least they knew better than the average person now. It's the point that I'm making. But you can look at this across like all industries. Take the music industry, for example. So many of the musicians nowadays, I'm not going to say they don't have talent, but the ones that are popular, the ones that get pushed the most, are the least talented ones. They're the ones who use the exact same consistent melodies. Their songs have no real thought put into them. The lyrics are nonsense. I actually saw recently there was I don't know if he was African or what he is, but there's a new rapper that is getting like promoted and he's going viral. And he's a rapper that is deaf and mute, or not mute, but he's at least deaf. So he can't speak. Like the things he says is like jumbled, it's gibberish. Now that's not me insulting him, but it's just ironic because the purpose of rap is to use your words in a certain way to create a certain sense of melody, harmony, a beat, whatever. He can't do it. He literally cannot do it. And he can't do it because we've declined. The quality of the music industry has declined. Even the education system. Take a look at the education system. It's the exact same way. Somehow, since the education system was first created, we have not managed to improve it in any way. Sure, the buildings look nicer. Sure, there are computers. But as far as the actual curriculum and as far as the actual things that are taught, the way we teach people things, there's really been no improvement since the creation of the education system itself. Look at businesses. It's a decline in the quality of businesses. Most businesses in the past, or a lot of businesses that thrived in the past, their goal was to create value by creating a sort of innovations that help their consumers. They wanted the consumers to win, and this is how they made money. But nowadays it's the opposite. Nowadays, all these businesses are trying to extract value from you in the form of money without giving you much in return. You have iPhones that intentionally make their phones degrade over time. So that way you can just buy more iPhones without them having to actually add anything new to the iPhones. They're just extracting value from you without offering much in return. And, they can increase the price by like 1,000 and people will buy it because they feel like they need to or because they're so loyal to the brand. But the iPhone might just change the color or they might just change the layout of the user interface. It's not much value being given, but it's a lot of value being extracted in the form of money. Look in the health and fitness space. Most of the health advice you see nowadays is garbage. It's garbage. There are very few. It's funny because I'll see doctors on the news recommend the latest pill. They'll recommend Ozempic. They'll recommend like all these surgeries you can get to like take body fat and inject into your butt, inject into your titties, to do all the stuff so you can eat less. So that way you can have a six pack abs faster. They'll recommend every procedure and every medication in the book, but almost none of them recommend actually working out. Almost none of them recommend just going outside. Oh, you're vitamin D deficient. Here, take this medicine that'll help you increase your vitamin D. Take the supplement. You could just go outside. The sun still exists. You could just go outside, but they don't recommend this. Again, they're trying to offer very little to you while extracting as much value as possible. Instead of just saying to you, you can just go exercise and you'll be much healthier than any of these medications or any of these remedies or any of these surgeries can make you. They won't say that because they don't get money out of this. Instead, what they do is they'll say to you, buy my shit. It's the truth. Fitness industry, the exact same thing. The fitness industry nowadays is almost like a joke. Everyone's on steroids. Everyone's on some kind of drug, testosterone. Everyone's got these implants, these surgeries. You can go on Instagram and you see like fitness influencers and they barely work out. They have surgeries that make their butt look bigger, or their titties look bigger, or abs implanted, or they're on some kind of crazy steroids while claiming that they aren't on steroids. Low value society, hypersexualization. You can't go anywhere nowadays without something being hypersexualized. You go to Instagram, you go to Facebook, you go on YouTube, you go to just some random movie, and there needs to be hypersexualization of especially women. It's excessive. It's excessive. Role models and celebrities. I don't think I need to tell you that most of our role models and celebrities nowadays are low value. They promote nothing. I actually have a few pictures of some modern day role models and celebrities. I know some people watching, if you're watching this video, you probably don't consider any of these people to be role models. And if that's true, that is fantastic. But the reality is that plenty of people do consider these individuals and people like them role models and celebrities. That's why they're popular. That's why they're famous. You have Cardi B, millions of followers. She's barely literate. She doesn't make her own music. She can't sing. She can't rap. She can't write. She can barely dress herself. She can't do anything. She doesn't understand anything about politics. And that's a whole different rabbit hole to get into. But you understand the point that I'm making, hopefully. You have this chick at the bottom left. She's famous for being ghetto, for being annoying on Dr. Phil. That's it. Then you got this guy, I Show Speed. Don't know much about him. I've seen a few videos. I don't see the appeal. He just yells at the camera all day and he barks at people. What value is he truly bringing outside of entertainment? None. What can he teach you? Nothing. What has he actually accomplished in his life other than just getting money? We're going to talk about the money part because, spoiler alert, people used to kind of attribute the money you got to your success, or they would say, oh, well, you provide value to people and that's how you make money. This was true back in the day, but this is no longer true in the modern era. And I'm going to get into this soon, but again, I'm spoiling this a little bit. You can nowadays just make money by being as low quality as possible. In fact, it's actually incentivized. If you try to be a high quality person, you're not going to be popular. You're not going to get famous. And because you're not going to get famous or popular or make money in the grand scheme of things by being high status in the grand scheme of some of the things we're going to cover soon, you're kind of disincentivized from doing it. You got this dude on the bottom left, Jack Doherty. I've been seeing a lot of videos of him recently. He's a YouTube prankster, or I guess he used to be a YouTube prankster. Now he's like a streamer on some of these like new platforms. What skill does he have? None. Going around and agitating people, making them mad is not a skill. It's annoying. But nowadays we live in such a low status society that this is what's being promoted. This is what's being encouraged. These are the people who everyone looks up to, the people who just end up being annoying or obnoxious solely for the sake of views. And this is how they get paid. And it creates this negative feedback loop negative in a sense, but I guess technically it's a positive feedback loop for what they're doing, of people who continue to emulate them, and they become also low quality, which creates low status and low quality society. But I will say this, there is a bright side to all of this. Even though most people are becoming low status and low quality, there's a bright side to all of this. Because so many people are low value, the bar is set super low. This means that no matter, it's almost impossible if you actually put in a little bit of effort, it's almost impossible to not be high status. It's almost impossible to not be high value. And I know that sounds like a leap, but it's not. It's truly not. I'm going to spoil some more right here. If you just get in shape, I read a statistic recently. Most people, I think about 60% of all Americans are overweight. And this is overweight not from like a muscle perspective. Like there's some people who are obviously overweight because they have a lot of muscle and they're in good shape. I'm not referring to this. They're overweight because they have too much body fat. So about 60% of Americans, and that was, I read that study like 2 years ago. It's probably higher now because obviously the health industry has not helped people get in better shape. It's contributed to everyone getting in worse shape. But let's just say 60% of people are overweight. And out of those 60%, half of them are obese. It's crazy to think about. Now, there were other statistics that I've seen where about 5% of the population actually work out, like consistently. 5%. 5% of the population actually works out. And I know if you're watching this, you probably know of a good group of people that work out, and you probably think that's not true. That can't be true. Like, how can only 5% of the people work out? But you gotta understand, like, there's X millions of people in this country, and chances are, if you do know a lot of people that work out, you probably live in a college town where there's people who are incentivized to work out, or you live in more of a metropolitan area or like an upper class area, we'll call it. So if you live like near DC, if you live in like Miami or like Fort Lauderdale, someplace where it's sunny and there's a decent amount of money flowing around, and an incentive for people to be in shape where there's like beaches, or if you live in like California maybe or New York, sure, you'll probably see people who work out. But just think about society as a whole, because you're seeing a group of people that are working out. But if you actually went outside, even in those areas, and looked at most people, you'd probably sit there and notice that most people are at least overweight, if not obese. So about 5% of people actually work out consistently. Out of the 5% that work out consistently, I believe it's something about 1% of those people actually have a routine that they do consistently that leads to them getting in shape or getting the results that they want. Keep that in mind. There's 5% of people that actually work out. But just because you work out doesn't mean you actually change, because there's a difference between working out effectively and knowing what you're doing and, like going through the motions, or there's a difference between like knowing what you're doing and actually getting in shape because you understand like how fat loss works, how to gain muscle, whatever you're trying to go for, versus people who just go and they might do the exact same thing, every single week. They don't have a routine. They're inconsistent. There's a big difference. So keep that in mind as well. And this is true in multiple categories when it comes to money. I'm spoiling a lot of stuff in this video, but I want you to understand this in the beginning, just in case you want to click off this. I know how some people have a low attention span nowadays, which is also a trait of the low status individual, having low attention span. But just in case you want to click off, I'm going to give you a lot of the meat up front. Money. Most people are broke. Most people are broke or in massive debt. So it's easy to get ahead of most of them. Health. Most people don't go to the gym. Most people don't work out. Most people are in terrible shape. It's easy to get ahead of them. Relationships. Most people are either in a terrible relationship, most people can't get a relationship, or most people are just lonely, whether they're in a relationship or not. They're just lonely. So if you can just not be those things, you're ahead of most people. So, and this is what I say when I'm kind of tell you that it's easy to get ahead of 99% of people. Because by doing just even one of those things, by just having more money, or by being in better shape, or by having better quality relationships, that already puts you ahead of most people easily. So I want you to keep this in mind as we kind of go through this video, because I want to share with you like the exact steps that you can do to actually become in the top 1% in all of those categories and more. So, like I was kind of saying in the previous part of this video, in the previous slide, in the past, you could have good morals, you could have a good career, and adding value to society with those things could get you more money. You could be a great lawyer, and being a great lawyer would usually mean that you have the most money. You could be a great doctor, and usually being a great doctor meant you have the most money. People come to you, people trust you, and people want to use your services, and that's how you made a lot of money. Nowadays, this is not the case. Nowadays, you think of someone with money, you might find a YouTuber with a lot of money, you might find a prankster with a lot of money, you might find some random girl that might sell her body online with a lot of money. Do these people add value to society? It's debatable, but I would argue not really. I think they would actually take away from the true value of what society could be. But that's how money's being made. And again, it kind of creates this loop where the more people see others do crazy stuff to get money and to get attention, the more people want to emulate that because they too want to get money and attention. I saw a video recently, and someone said that religion is gone, and heaven is now fame. Is now fame. And I sat there and thought to myself, like that makes complete sense. It's so true. Nowadays, people want fame as their heaven. People don't sit there and ask, God or think about religion or think about their spirituality. What people do is they sit there and say to themselves, how do I get famous? How do I get famous? How do I get fame? That's my goal, is to get famous. Oh, do I go out and just like punch some random person? Will that get me famous? If so, then I'll do it. That's my stairway to heaven. Just doing whatever is obnoxious and whatever makes sense to get me attention, to get me some fame. If I'm in a street interview, if I say something crazy or wild, it might get me fired from my job. It might ruin my life, but it'll get me famous. And fame is the new heaven. Now, personally, I think this mindset, it's not sustainable. You can't have the kind of mindset where you're destructive and hope that things end up staying, I guess, on an upward incline, so to speak. I think by default, people trying to be overly sensational, people trying to take this like easy route, as I'm going to call it, using just whatever they can to get attention in order to get money, it doesn't lead to good results. And I think you can kind of see this in different industries. I'm going to go back a little bit. We talked about music industry. When you see some people who kind of use like auto-tune too much, or when they don't write their own music, eventually they get exposed and eventually their fans hate them. Or when you see education system nowadays, I kind of brought this up already. So many Americans are just low IQ. Again, probably not statistically. Maybe they are. I'm not sure. I haven't checked statistics to see if that's valid or not. But you can ask the average American stuff, and they don't seem to know anything in the grand scheme of things. College educated people, they don't seem to know things. They think they know things, but they don't actually know things. Businesses, you see this all the time. Businesses that shortcut the process to making money, eventually what happens is that they run into an issue where they can't make any more money, or they don't know exactly how to make money because maybe they did some kind of shortcuts, maybe they got lucky, and then when it comes time to actually learn, like go through the process of making money to save their business, they don't know what to do and they fail. They're taking shortcuts. Health and fitness, you see people who are on steroids. You take steroids because you want to get bigger faster, and that's cool in the short run until you have a heart attack and you die, or until your body just fails on you. Or in some instances, maybe you don't die, but you end up like a Ronnie Coleman, where you did get the fame, but now you can't move for the rest of your life. You can barely function. You can't do basic activities. So you take a shortcut, you might get short-term gains, but it comes at the cost of a long-term sacrifice. And I think in the grand scheme of things too, this whole society that we've created by everyone taking shortcuts, everyone using sensationalism to get ahead, to get fame, to get to heaven, so to speak, it creates a fake society as well as a low value society. I think that's actually probably what makes it low value, is because it's just so fake. Like nothing really means anything anymore. Nothing's truly real. You can see four people I have here, four more celebrities. Kim Kardashian, I'm sure you've heard of her. Famous for what? Truly, answer the question. What is she famous for? I don't know. I mean, I know she did like a sex tape, but is that a skill? Is having sex a skill? I mean, to my knowledge, most humans did it. Most humans continue to do it. Most humans will continue to do it after we've all passed away. I think that's how humans will continue to exist on this planet. And I guess if people stop doing it, we'll no longer exist. And maybe until science finds a way to make like test tube babies or something. I don't know. But my point is, she did nothing to become famous. in the grand scheme of things. No talents, no skills. She can't sing. She can't act. She's not even naturally like, not for lack of a better word, hot. She's plastic. Everything about her is plastic. She has no skills. Speaking of fake, by the way, I thought this was funny. When I was making this like presentation, when I was looking up this video, I don't know how true this is, but when I found this photo of Kim Kardashian, it was with an article that said that she still wants to act in like movies, but she can't because she has so much Botox. Again, she's taking shortcuts to remain youthful instead of just working out and just like staying in shape. She's taking shortcuts with drugs and with surgeries and procedures. She has so much Botox that she can't create a range of facial expressions. And unfortunately, having a range of facial expressions is necessary to be a good actor. So, because she took shortcuts, one of the things she wants to do, one of her goals, is no longer able to be accomplished. Now, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. I don't know. Maybe for her it might matter. She's still a billionaire, multimillionaire. Do I feel bad that she can't act because she took surgeries and did Botox? Not really. I don't care. But hopefully you understand the point that I'm trying to make. Where taking these shortcuts does not always lead to the ideal lifestyle. It doesn't always lead to long-term rewards or long-term gains. And then we have other people here. You see like Belle Delphine, fake. I mean, she gives as OnlyFans girl for anyone that's not familiar with her. She gives you the girlfriend experience, but it's a fake relationship. She's extracting money from lonely men in exchange for pretending to almost be your girlfriend, pretending to be someone that maybe cares about your feelings. I don't really know how OnlyFans works on a deep level because I don't use it. But again, I think you understand the point that I'm trying to make. She's not really giving you much, but she's getting a lot from a lot of these men in exchange. You have people like Neon. I kind of went into this with the Jack Doherty thing. Streamer doesn't offer much society, very fake. A lot of these people too, what they do is they manufacture fake lifestyles and they manufacture drama. They manufacture fights. They manufacture pranks where the pranks aren't even real. They manufacture life essentially in order to be entertaining. Now, it's fine when it's a movie, it's fine when it's a TV show, but if too many people do this for the sake of being famous, then everything becomes a movie, but not a good movie, not like an entertaining, like actually enjoyable movie. It becomes a shitty movie. And I feel like people nowadays can kind of sense it. Like people nowadays say how things are so bland, things are so boring. It's because everyone's so fake. No one's authentic. Nothing's authentic anymore. So it takes the joy out of life in a sense, for at least for people that fall into this trap. And I have like Conor McGregor. I kind of put Conor McGregor just because I see him as someone that started out with skill and talent, but then kind of traded off to live a comfortable life where he's not adding so much good value to society. He's just promoting like brands, whiskey, whatever, which is fine. He's free to do whatever he wants. He earned his money. I'm not hating it. I'm just saying that it creates this world where everyone's fake. Because obviously, does Conor McGregor sit there and drink his whiskey all the time? No. But he'll promote it every single day to get money from you. Same thing with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Does Dwayne Johnson drink his tequila all the time? No. But he'll promote it to get money from you. I'm not hating it. I'm just calling things out for what they are. And yeah, I kind of went through this already, but when you take these shortcuts, it leads to long-term failure. Some examples I kind of have here. When you take the shortcut, say for example, of not exercising, and you allow yourself to kind of fall into that laziness trap, it works out well and it feels good and it feels comfortable up until you need energy to do basic stuff, up until you breathe heavy when you're like in your 40s or your 30s or your 50s, because when you were in your 20s and 30s, you didn't bother working out. You didn't bother taking care of your health. It's all fine until you're like in your 40s and 50s and you get a heart attack because you didn't actually take care of your health. Same thing with money. A lot of people nowadays, I see a lot of this with younger people my age, in their 20s and 30s, they'll take all of their money and they kind of give a big like fuck it, and they just go on these vacations. They go on trips, and they go into massive debt to do this. And they're trading short-term rewards at the cost of long-term pleasure, if that makes sense. They're going on the trips now, but they're going to have a terrible life in the future because they're not investing in themselves. They're not investing their money somewhere effective. They're going for these short-term pleasures where they're going on these vacations, places that will exist in the future, by the way, in exchange for probably having a shitty life after these vacations are done. Go on vacations their entire 20s just to have a shitty life in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe even beyond that. Because even though the health industry does suck, there are medical advancements or technological advancements in the medical industry that could keep people alive longer. So it's a longer time frame for suffering, essentially. And to me, that's not really, I don't know. I personally wouldn't want that. So this is kind of the problem with the shortcuts. You're setting yourself up for failure. Now, I want to, if you're, as you're watching this and as you listen to like the steps I'm going to share with you, the framework that I have in mind, keep this expression in mind. Because I think a lot of times when I see like some of these influencers and gurus, and even when I read books and see like the way people think about things, sometimes people present their ideas in the sense that it's winner take all, like it's a zero sum game. Like if you want to get rich, it needs to come at the cost of everyone else being rich. I saw a video recently with Andrew Tate. He's a famous influencer, social media guy, whatever you want to call him, businessman, whatever you want to call him. And he was making a video where he was saying that he worked so hard despite being rich that he's going to destroy everyone and take all their money and other people can't compete with him. While I do think that it's good to keep the idea of work in mind and it's good to kind of not be lazy, essentially, the mistake in that expression that he's kind of giving people is that it's not a zero sum game. He can make 10 billion and you can make 1 million and it doesn't have to come at the cost of each other. Does that make sense? Like him making 10 billion does not hurt your chances of making 1 million or 10 million or 100 million or a couple hundred grand. But he's expressing it as if it does. And I think that's a flawed way of thinking. Like just because someone else is working super hard doesn't mean you have to work at their pace because you're not trying to get the same thing that they want to get. You're not striving for the exact same outcome. So you don't have to do the exact same things they're doing. So there's an expression that I want you to keep in mind throughout this entire video. And I don't know if this is like an exact quote, but just to kind of paraphrase what I've heard before, there's an expression that goes, if a lion's chasing you, you don't need to be the fastest. You just need to not be the slowest. Does that make sense? Like you don't have to be perfect, but you just can't be the worst at something. This is what's most important. And I think when I hear the expression, like, if a lion's chasing you, don't be the slowest. Life is the lion. Life is coming at you. You don't need to be the slowest, or you don't need to be the fastest, but you just shouldn't be the slowest. Pretty much what I'm trying to say with this is try your best not to be the 99%. When life comes to like swallow the 99% of people, the people that are just too lazy, that are too comfortable, that don't think things through, that don't think ahead, it's best to not be them because life keeps coming for everybody. Like, I don't want you to think that life will get one person metaphorically and just stop and, be satisfied forever. That's not the way it works. Life is going to come for everybody, but in order for you to survive as long as possible, you just can't be the slowest. You can't be in the 99%. Or at least if you are in the 99%, you wouldn't be at the like top end of the 99%, not the bottom end where most people are going to like kind of pull towards. So keep this idea in mind throughout the rest of this video as I share my framework with you. And it's going to be step by step. I'm going to try to walk you through it as best as possible. Obviously, this is going to be a relatively short video, so I'm not going to get super in depth into everything. But I will give you as much as possible, as much practical information as possible, so that way you can implement it and take it into your life. And hopefully the next day, today, or next month or so, follow through with the things I share with you and actually get some results from it. So, first step of my framework, define a vision for yourself. I put a picture of Arnold Schwarzenegger over here. There's a good book I recommend called Total Recall. You can listen to the audiobook. He actually has a Netflix special out right now. It's just called Arnold. I would say if you don't want to read the book or if you don't want to listen to the audiobook, it's a bit long. So if you don't want to like read that or watch or listen to it, watch Arnold on Netflix. It pretty much covers everything he goes into in Total Recall. And Total Recall, for the record, is just kind of like I guess it's like an autobiography of his life. So far, at least, because of course he's still alive. But it's his whole life from when he was born, his childhood in Austria, moving to America, competing, becoming like one of the top actors, and then becoming like governor, and then kind of like retiring from that, but still like doing movies and stuff on the side. Very inspirational, very motivational. But one of the key things he talks about in Total Recall is that he was guided by his vision. And so when he moved to America, he came to be the best bodybuilder and he came to be like his idol, Reg Park. And that was the thing that fueled him, his vision. And people would try to like sway him from his vision. At one point, I think he had a friend of his that owned a gym, and his friend was like, "Hey, if you come to this gym, I'll give you like essentially like 100K or like six figures in today's currency." And which sounds sweet, sounds great, especially when you're like a broke immigrant from Austria who comes with like no money. He was like, "Oh yeah, this is fantastic," but he declined it because for him the vision was to become the best bodybuilder, to be Mr. Olympia, and then to eventually get movies like his idol Reg Park. And so he did exactly that. He had a vision, and when he went to his auditions, and he went to his auditions with his Austrian, his German accent, and people said to him, you can't be in movies. You're 6'2", you're too big, you're muscular. We don't want this. We need people who are shorter, we need people who are thinner, and people who are American. His vision fueled him. His vision kept him going. Now I say this because I think for most people lack a vision. I've come to understand this. Most people don't really have a vision in life. Most people are guided by someone else's vision that gets pushed onto them. Most people, if they, whatever they do in life, they do because their boss says they should do it. So they, work their jobs their entire lives because their boss says to do it. Their boss has a vision, but they don't have a vision, the individual. So the boss kind of assigns a vision for them, and it's the boss's vision for himself or herself. So maybe it benefits the individual, who knows? But chances are, in the grand scheme of things, it probably doesn't. Sometimes people's family gives the individual a vision. Sometimes you have overbearing families that just kind of dictate the way you want to live your life. I've talked about this in videos before, but I had friends when I was younger, and their parents would want them to be like doctors or engineers or lawyers, whatever. And my friends didn't want to do it, but they ended up doing it because their family said they should. Their family had a vision for them, and they followed out. They carried through with their family's vision. Now, were they happy? Was their life fulfilled? No, it wasn't. It was a terrible life for them, but they didn't create their own vision. So this is the consequence of their lack of action, so to speak. This is the consequence of not having a vision: unhappiness, unfulfillment, living the life that your family wants you to live at the cost of living your own life. Friends, your friends sometimes define what your values or what your vision should be. Society, especially, if you don't have your own vision, society certainly will assign one to you. And you don't want this. Because usually what society assigns for you is not in your best interest, it's in the interest of society itself. And almost always, what's in the benefit of society is not in the benefit for you. I kind of talked earlier about like the medical industry, and how nowadays the value of society as a whole is low. This is the reason why you don't want to follow society's prescription. Society is low value. So if you listen to what society prescribes you, if you follow the vision that society gives you, you by default will become low value. And this is what has happened to most people. This is why most people are low value, because they follow the vision given to them by society or by the government, by their friends, by their families, by their bosses, whatever. So what I recommend when it comes to getting your vision, first of all, there's something I call the funeral test. And this is not something I made up. I've read about this in different books. But essentially, what the funeral test is just imagine you're at a funeral. You go up to a casket. As you're walking up to the casket, you hear people talking about all of the great things the person in this casket did. They're talking about all the great memories they have with this person, how accomplished this person was, how great and fashionable he is. You get to the casket, you open it up, and you look inside, and it's you in the casket. This is your funeral. So now the question is, what are the things you'd like other people to say about you at your funeral? What are the things as you're walking up to your own casket would you wish other people are saying about you? What positive things, what great stories would you hope that they're telling about you? And I like this exercise because I think for most people, I've read in a few different books and I've seen a few different documentaries where Humans struggle to kind of perceive themselves in the future. Like most humans see themselves as they are now and struggle to project themselves effectively far into the future. Like humans compared to animals are better at projecting into the future, but not by that long. Most humans, at least. Most humans can maybe project like a day, maybe a week, maybe some more advanced humans, a few weeks, maybe a few months. Very few humans are good at projecting themselves far into the future 5 years, 15 years, 30 years, 50 years down the line. The funeral test almost kind of like forces you to do this. It forces you to project yourself into the future. And then once you project yourself into the future, you can see the kind of life that you hopefully would have accomplished and then reverse engineer the process to get that life. That's the purpose of this experiment. So once you kind of go through this kind of mental exercise, and I recommend you write stuff like this down, like whatever people in this thought experiment are saying about you in this funeral test, write it down. If you're going to your own funeral and people say, oh yeah, Leviticus is like one of the best rock climbers I ever met. Leviticus was so charming. When I met him, he knew so many languages. He was always super inspirational, super motivational. Write it down. Write it down. The next thing, have an infinite goals list. And this is something I came up with. I think sometimes if you have goals, I try to look at like other people who are successful. And there are some people that are super successful and they seem to kind of maintain a high energy level their entire lives. And there are people that get success and they fall off and they eventually lose their success. Or if they do maintain their success, they seem to be depressed or unhappy. And sometimes in situations, they unalive themselves. And my thought process is the people that become unhappy, they're unhappy because they lack goals. They lack a vision, but part of that vision is they don't have any goals to strive for. And I think when you have nothing to strive for, you don't find a reason to act. You don't find a reason to continue. So I came up with this concept called the infinite goals list. And basically what it is write as many goals as you want, as crazy or ridiculous as they might seem, write it out. And once you I'm going to get to this kind of later on in this presentation, but as you level up in life, as you make more money, start to tackle those infinite goals to the best of your ability. Obviously, some of the things you're going to put on this list are going to be unreasonable or unrealistic or just impossible. That's fine. Still try them because it gives life meaning. It gives you something to do. And the more things you have to do, the more energy you'll be able to sustain. It's when people lack goals and lack a vision for themselves. That's when they start to die. So that's my recommendation. Next thing, at least for the now, at least for like the short term, once you create your infinite goals list, and it can be as many as you like, it can be 20, it can be 50, it can be 10, it can be 5, it can be 5,000. Doesn't matter for now. But once you create a list of goals, narrow it down to the top 2 to 3 most important goals. And then from that 2 to 3 most important goals that you've narrowed it down to, do the most impactful one now. Like make that your only goal, or at least your main goal that you're focusing on. And if you're like a beginner in like life, I'm going to call it, watching this, that most impactful goal is almost always money. I'm going to say that money's probably a major deterrent, especially nowadays, to like most things. If you want to have more friends, you probably need some money to make friends. And I'm not saying that you're going to buy friends, but the money will be the tool that allows you to go out for coffee frequently. It's going to be the tool that allows you to go to that concert with your friends. It's going to be the tool that allows you to buy that video game console so you can invite friends over. It'll be the tool that allows you to have the nice apartment. Does that make sense? So money is almost always probably the most impactful goal you can strive for. There's a limit to it, but on the front end, almost always money is like the most impactful goal you can probably pick. It won't always be, and if you have any questions about this, leave a comment. We can probably kind of go through it and see what your most impactful goal is or could be. But I would say that most of the time, money is that thing. So now we move on to step 2. Get in shape. Now, I'm a major advocate that health is wealth. A lot of people neglect their health until it's too late. There's a good expression I heard it from Naval Ravikant on like Joe Rogan Experience like years ago, and he said something along the lines of, "A healthy man wants 1,000 things. A sick man wants only one." And if you couldn't put the pieces together, a sick man wants to be healthy. People take their health for granted until they no longer have it. And then people panic to get it. And they panic. Once they panic to get it, they find that it's difficult to get back. Don't be that person. Focus on your health first. Now, of course, if you are in a position where you have like no money, you're like below the poverty line, like I said before, focus on getting money. But there's a balance between focusing on getting money or focusing on other goals and allowing your health to go to shit. Don't do that. Focus on health. Now, obviously, in the short video, I can't go super deep into what it means to be healthy, or at least what I think it means to be healthy. But I will say this: if nothing else, just work out more frequently. Work out like 3 to 5 times a week if you can. It doesn't need to be complicated. If you're an absolute beginner, just start by doing calisthenics. In calisthenics, if you're not familiar, it's just body weight exercises. Do push-ups at home, do sit-ups, do squats, go for a 20-minute walk, hour walk, whatever. If walking's too simple or too easy, go for a jog. 20 minutes, an hour, whatever. It doesn't need to be complicated. Just move. Just move more. If you're more intermediate or more advanced, then get a workout routine. Get a sustainable diet. If you're trying to gain more muscle to be like my dude over here in this picture, I recommend doing micro cuts and micro bulks. And basically, what micro cuts and micro bulks are, you take a period of 8 to 12 weeks and you bulk or you cut based on whatever your goals are. You don't go to the extremes. So don't do like a dirty bulk where you gain like 50 pounds in 12 weeks. It's a micro cut or a micro bulk. You gain about maybe 5 pounds if you can. Then you cut back. Take a break, give your body time to adjust, then take another 8 to 12 weeks, go in a mini bulk, then adjust, and go in a cut. And you repeat this process until you get the physique that you want to get. And then when it comes to a diet, my thought process is avoid, crazily processed foods. I'm not one of those dudes that's like super strict on avoiding all processed foods. I think to a degree, it's almost hard to, whoops, to a degree, it's actually pretty difficult to avoid processed stuff because so much of our foods are processed. But to the best of your ability, avoid a lot of like high processed foods. Get a diet where it's high in protein, and avoid like shitty sugars. I call like stuff from like candy, stuff from like sweets, cakes. I call those shitty sugars. If you're gonna get sugars, try to get them from like fruits, just more natural sources of sugar. I'm not gonna get super deep into the why you should be doing this. You can look that up on your own, or have other videos where I talk more about like diet specifically. But that's my recommendation for getting in shape. Step 3, get aesthetic. Now, getting in shape is one thing. Being aesthetic is a different thing. And being aesthetic, if you don't know what the meaning of aesthetic is, it's basically being more presentable. It's looking a certain way, looking in a way that's more pleasing to the eyes of most people. Obviously, aesthetics and attractiveness is all subjective, but there is a certain level of objectivity in attractiveness. So your goal is to get as attractive as possible in the eyes of most people. And one of the main reasons why I think you should be doing this is for basically what's known as the halo effect. Now, if you're not familiar with the halo effect, pretty much what the halo effect is I'm trying to present this in like a simple way. The better you look, the better you're perceived by most people. And specifically, the more higher your attributes are seen as higher than most people. So, for example, if you are, say, like fat or sloppy, people might consider you to be lazy. They might consider you to be stupid, or there's a higher chance they will at least. There's a higher chance they might see you as lazy, as stupid, as smelly, whatever. Insert your low quality attribute below. However, if you are in great shape, if you dress well, people are more inclined to consider you smarter, more reliable, more trustworthy. They might believe you have more money. They attribute better qualities to you if you're more aesthetic. And the reason why I say this is so vital is because, in a weird way, people, as a side note, this isn't like part of the notes or anything, but people like to remain consistent with their beliefs. So if people believe you to be, say, smarter or more wealthy or whatever, people will validate that belief that they have of you, and in some situations give you that thing. Does that make sense? So like if people see you as more if you're more aesthetic and people see you as more intelligent, say for example you're in your job, your boss is more likely to give you a promotion or give you a raise or give you more money. Does that make sense? Because they're remaining consistent with their belief of you. You can even see this. Is actually, this is kind of random, but there's a funny there's like this anime I saw recently. Don't judge me. I like anime. There's an anime I saw recently, and I think it's called Lookism. It's on Netflix. It's super short. At least the Netflix anime version of it is. And the whole show or the whole anime is about this kid that's like fat, he's overweight, very talented singer, but one day he like transforms into this tall and attractive guy. Like he goes from being like short and fat to tall and attractive. And people treat him better by default because he's tall and attractive. Now, is that fair? No. But is that how people are in real life? Yes. Just look at like athletes or look at like celebrities. A lot of celebrities look better than the average person. And without even being more talented or doing anything in particular, I've already shown you that a lot of celebrities are actually not even that special. They're not smart, you know, whatever. People treat them better by default. People will give them more gifts, more opportunities, whatever, by default, just because they look more attractive. Like part of what made them celebrities in the first place probably had a bit to do with their attractiveness. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying a lot of them probably were attractive. Where you have, you know, celebrities that are tall. A lot of male celebrities tend to be tall. They tend to be above like 6 feet or around that 6 feet mark. It's aesthetics. In the grand scheme of things, they have high quality traits, and so people give them more opportunities because they are remaining consistent. Other people are remaining consistent with their belief of that person. I think I have like Eddie Moore. I have Bradley Cooper here in this slide, in this picture. I think Bradley Cooper is like 6'3", 6'4", 6'2", something like that, above average height, good looking guy. Do you think that didn't attribute to his success? I'm sure it did. I'm sure being tall and being handsome certainly does contribute to your success. Now, of course, he has talent too. He's a good actor. But my point is that there are other people who are probably a lot shorter than him, who are not nearly as good looking as him, who probably have 10x the acting talent that he has, that got passed up for an acting position, maybe because they just weren't tall or they weren't in great shape. And your psychological biases, or at least the people, you know, that pick actors and auditions, whatever, their psychological biases cause them to pick I keep saying Eddie Moore, to pick Bradley Cooper over the short, fat guy. Hopefully this makes sense. So yeah, getting in better shape. And then once you get to a certain, like, once you get into a certain shape, actually changing your physique is better for you in the grand scheme of things. It's better for you financially. It's better from a relationship perspective, whether that's dating or just meeting new people. It's better for you in every way for the most part. Obviously, there are some disadvantages too. People call it like the downsides being pretty, but the benefits outweigh the negatives. So I recommend it. And then style is a part of that. Style is a part of aesthetics. I highly recommend, even before you get in like great shape, take time to invest in your style. Take time to get better clothing. Take time to go to a tailor and get clothing that fits you better. I guarantee by just doing that, even if you don't get in great shape initially, people will start to see you as a better version of who you might actually currently be. They'll start to treat you better. And because people start to treat you better, it'll raise your self esteem and it creates a positive feedback loop in which you're more likely to just do more with your life. Um, Real quick, I wish I had a clip to show you, but you can go on like Google or YouTube and like look this up. But there's a scene from Limitless. This is where this character Eddie Moore is from, who I kept saying over and over again. There's a scene from this movie called Limitless where this dude on the right, Eddie, takes his pill called NZT. He gets like super smart, and one of the first things he does is he works out and he changes his appearance. He gets a haircut. He gets better clothing that fits him well. He goes and gets like stuff tailored. And I don't know if they were intentionally like trying to do this, but in that movie, the first like things he does once he gets NZT is essentially like the blueprint that I'm going to share with you. It's essentially what you can do today or in like the next week or month or whatever to get ahead of most people. Like just take care of yourself, get in better shape, start reading more books. And there's other stuff he does in the movie, some of which we'll cover in this presentation. But this third step is super important and it's super easy to do, which is why I'm harping on it for so long. Step 4, increase your income. Now, my thing is this. I think a lot of people online, a lot of gurus, they try to make it seem like you need to be like a multimillionaire to be happy. I don't think this is true. I think you can certainly just be well off, make 40, 50, 60, 70, 80K, depending on where you live and depending on like your debt and all that stuff. You can make a modest income and still be happy. You just need to live below your means. I think it's when people start to stretch the boundaries of their lifestyle and live above their means, that's when they start to get depressed and that's when they start to get unhappy. Now, I'm going to say this from personal experience. There's been times where I was making like 17K, 20K, but for the most part, my general debts were paid off. I was pretty happy in the grand scheme of things. Like, obviously, I wanted, like, just me being someone who's like relatively ambitious, wanted to get more done in life. And I knew that money was like a vehicle or a tool to get what I wanted, but I was content. But I've also had situations where I made more money, but was played like life too risky and got into like serious debt. That is stressful. That's where you get like unhappy. That's a position you don't want to be in. Don't over leverage yourself. It's good to be stable and it's good to be living below your means. Now, there's a lot of stuff you can do in general to just increase your income or to live below your means. The first thing I recommend, and this is like the main thing I'd recommend, get a good paying job. Just get a good paying job. And there's two things I'd recommend in this position if you're trying to get a good paying job. Number one, if you're in a job and the job's not paying you very well, get skills and switch your job. There are so many different ways nowadays to like get better skills. You can go on Udemy, take classes for super cheap or almost free. Coursera is a tool out there that lets you take classes. A lot of them are free or some of them are paid, but it's super cheap. There's ways to get skills. I think nowadays Google even offers like a Google certification program where if you take like their whole program, it's free and there's a good chance you can get hired at different companies. Will it be easy? I'm not saying it will be easy, but is it possible to get a boost in your income without having to go the traditional college route and spend all this money on like a loan and waste like 4, 5, 6, X amount of years? Absolutely. There's plenty of people nowadays that make tons of money that don't even have a college degree. I have friends of mine who do like real estate, make plenty of money, did not go to college. I have friends of mine who just do careers that have nothing to do with their college degree, myself included, make good money, but they didn't need the degree. The degree was irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You can design websites for people, make some good money doing that. You can be a salesperson, do like sales, do cold calling, CRM management, all stuff that you can learn online for free, or at least for a very low cost. So if you're at a job right now where you don't have a good income, or if you don't have a job at all, that would be what I recommend. Get a good job with a good income to start. And I'd say if you're like fresh with like no skills, or if you're like out of college, get skills. That like I recommend that. Super simple to do. Second thing, if you're at a job currently and you don't want to leave the job for whatever reason, because sometimes switching jobs is risky. Sometimes the market for job switching isn't good. And maybe the job you're at is a good job. Maybe you like your coworkers. Maybe you like your boss. Maybe the work schedule isn't too bad. It's close to home, whatever it might be. Ask for a raise. And I would say the simplest thing you can do, in my personal opinion, to get a raise is demonstrate value to the business. You can either directly ask your boss, what can I do to get a raise? I want to get a raise, but I want to give value up front. What can I do in order to get this raise? And the boss will give you work. He or she will give you work. There's always work to be done in a business to improve the revenue and profits of the business. So they'll give you work. And then once you do that work and you prove how valuable you are to the business, there's a great chance they'll give you a raise or, bump you up to a promotion. Second thing you can do if you already demonstrate a lot of value, or at least if you feel you demonstrate a lot of value, is you can write a letter stating how much you want to earn, how much you currently earn, and how much value you bring to the table. And I'd recommend too, if you have like a lot of different skills, I'd put the market value of those skills. So that way your boss can see like, oh, this person can do A, B, C, and C, D, E, F, G. And each of these skills are worth like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 in the current marketplace. Meanwhile, I'm paying this person like 30K or 25K or 40K, whatever. I'm getting a good deal. and this person understands it. They know their value, and there's a good chance I might lose them. So if I write this letter, they can kind of see like objectively what this person's value is worth, and then from there, make a decision. Okay, I think Johnny is a good asset to our company. He does do all the stuff. He's super easy to work with. He does have all these skills. He brings a lot to the table. He is being slightly underpaid. Let's give him the raise that he wants. That's another way of getting more money. So that's what I recommend first. Simplest way, get a new job to get more money or get a raise at the current job that you're at. Next thing, if you don't have any credit cards, and this is like super basic stuff, but if you don't have credit cards, open some credit cards, at least one. I've done videos on like how credit works, the benefits of credit, so I'm not going to get super deep into this right now. There's a course I have called the No Fluff Guide to Finances. It's free. I highly recommend it. It's more of a practical approach to money and finances. And I go through credit in that course. But credit will be necessary in the long run for things like if you want to buy a house, if you want to get a car, if you want to invest. A lot of times you need credit to do these things, and you need good credit. And part of good credit is the length of time that you've had credit. People neglect that. Some people avoid credit because they think it's like bad. It's not bad. It's just it's bad habits that make the credit card bad. But a credit card in the grand scheme of things is fantastic if you know how to use it effectively and if you understand how credit scores operate and how to increase it. Again, not going to get into it in this video, but just keep that in mind. Open a credit card. And if you do have a credit card or if you have debts, pay them off, especially the high interest rates and the consumer debts that you might have. Student loans, of course, are harder to do if you have them. Car loans are harder to do if you have them. But if you have a credit card and you've just been like buying clothes or like eating out a lot, pay those off. It's not worth the hassle. It's not worth the stress. Trust me, I know from personal experience. And then I recommend this too. And I count this as part of like increasing your income. To me, like income is not just money. To me, it's part of that is like mindset and the skills that you have that make up who you are as an entire individual, like the value of yourself as an individual. So depending on your age, I would say go high risk. So more if you're like in your 20s or like late teens, go super high risk. Like try new stuff, jump from job to job if you feel like you have to, get some more experience, try things that other people aren't really going to try. I'm not saying be risky to the point where it's like detrimental to your life. Like some people are risky to the point where they're willing to like climb up a skyscraper and like walk on the edge to be risky. That's stupid. Don't do that, because if you die, then this whole game of life is finished. But you can take more risks. You can go out there and say you want to invest in real estate, try to flip a property and see what it's like to fail at flipping a property. Or if you want to try to like start a business, see what it's like to fail at starting a business. To me, there's this thing that I call a master's degree in life. And pretty much what a master's degree in life is, it's the next level way of thinking. And it's the experience and the skills you get from just trying a lot of hard and difficult things. And I think most people lack a master's degree in life. Most people barely have like a bachelor's degree in life because most people live life on repeat. That's a whole different story. I've done videos on this topic too, and I've done articles about this as well. But the only way to get your master's degree in life is to take risk and to actually fail. If you don't fail, you're not taking a true risk. Like you have to actually fail. You have to actually be broke for a long period of time, or at least push yourself close to that edge of being broke. You have to push yourself to the edge of trying to talk to girls or talk to guys, if depending on your gender or sex, whatever, and getting rejected. You have to push yourself to the edge of failing at the gym, knowing what it's like to be super tired, super exhausted. This is how you gain experience, and this is how you learn things. So if you're super young, part of high risk is also, to me, investing more in yourself. Buy courses, buy more books, buy seminars, attend seminars, meet new people. To me, these are all things that increase your income. And again, when I say income, I don't always just mean like the money in your bank account. When I say income, I mean like the value you as an individual hold. So that's my recommendation. Increase your income by doing those things. Step 5, create new relationships. It is super important to have a high quality social circle. We are social animals, and I feel like in the modern day, too many people like practice individualism or like isolate themselves. Now, there's a time and a place to isolate yourself. If you're trying to like get a lot of work done and improve yourself, sometimes it's worth ghosting your friends, ghosting your family, isolating yourself, and just getting work done that causes you to level up. However, you don't want to isolate yourself forever. You do want to spend time with friends. You do want to create a good social circle. You do want to spend time with your family or create your own family. Um, and my recommendation of this, because I've seen tons of videos where people say how difficult it is to like find friends, meet new people. I totally understand how that is. I was in that position once too, where I found it difficult to meet new people and like find friends. My recommendation first go to places where like-minded people tend to be. So I mentioned conferences and seminars. If you're someone that wants to like improve in your career, say for example you're an IT dude, go to like a tech conference and you'll meet other IT people. And if you meet other IT people, you guys already have something in common and you're more likely to bond. And if those people live near you, especially if they live near you, you can hang out with them more often. Chances are you guys bond on more stuff. When I was in college, this is a little bit less intentional, but it kind of worked out nicely. When I was in college, I worked at this place called the Break Zone, and the Break Zone was a pool hall. I worked there because I liked pool, and it also had video games. I liked video games, and so that's why I picked the job because I like those two things. I'm gonna adjust this brightness real quick. My bad. Sorry for this camera. I'm just gonna adjust my brightness on my camera real quick. But I used to work at this place called the Break Zone. I worked there because I had pool tables and I had video games, and I thought it was cool. And I met so many friends from that job, so many coworkers that worked that job just because they also wanted to like play video games and play pool. Um, and I obviously work's an easy place to meet people, but the point that I'm making is that you got to go to where the people you like are. When you're in college, it's a bit easier because you can always join clubs and organizations where the whole purpose of the club is to be around people that like a specific thing. But once you kind of get into the real world, so to speak, you have to make a more active effort to go to these like conferences, go to these seminars, go to these local events at your library, go to maybe bars that have certain events or certain like themes to meet these types of people. The next thing I'd recommend doing is invite people to things proactively. And so what I mean by this is what I see a lot of people do incorrectly. A lot of people, they want to make new friends and they want to like have a good social circle, but they don't invite people to do stuff. They rely on other people to invite them, and they get upset when no one invites them to do things. But the reality is that if everyone's out there waiting for someone to invite them to something, then no one's inviting anyone to do anything, which means everyone's lonely, everyone's isolated. So rather than just kind of be passive in life, be active, be in the 1%, not the 99%, and just invite people to do stuff. It's not complicated, super simple. So this is what I personally do: create a list of people you know, and people you want to reach out to, people you want to meet or like hang out with more. What I usually do is I create like an Excel sheet. And in the Excel sheet, I kind of just like write down everyone in the Excel sheet. I put like their social media information or phone number, whatever I have, whatever's easy to like contact them on. I like Instagram, so I put their Instagrams. I'll put all that and I'll put like a note saying if I met them at all, and if I have met them, when the last time I met them was. And then usually alongside that, I'll also put like things that they like. Like if I have people that like anime, I'll write that they like anime. If I know people that like a certain movie, I'll put that they like a certain movie. If I met them at like some club, I'll put that. I'll put like details about them. And the reason why you want to do this is because you want to keep track of the people you interact with and you want to know things about them. I tend to find that like if you know things about people, it just makes it easy to connect to them. Like imagine you watching this right now. You're super big into like tennis. How much faster could we bond if I went up to you and said, "Hey, did you see that new thing that Serena Williams did? Or did you see that new movie about like Zendaya playing tennis?" You know, does that make sense? Like the more you know about somebody, the easier it is to connect with them. You don't have to like everything about that person, and you don't have to like everything that they like. But if you can just find one thing that you both have in common, it makes that bond way better. And for the record, too, as a side note, I wasn't going to talk about this, but it doesn't have to be something you actually like. It could just be something that you find interesting. So, for example, in my own life, I'm not Christian, but I am interested in the idea of Christianity. And so when I meet people who are Christian and I get to know them, sometimes I have debates with them about Christianity. And it's not like a negative like debate. Like I'm not trying to like destroy their faith or anything like that. But I'm interested that they are Christian. So despite me not being a Christian and not having that directly in common with them, my interest in Christianity as a concept is what causes the bond to happen. Does that make sense? So you don't have to like the same thing. You can just be interested in that thing, and that in itself can be what bonds you to somebody. Once you create the list and once you kind of have a group of people you want to interact with, invite them to something. Lead with the giving hand is what I call it. So like invite them to something like that you organize. If you want to invite them to get dinner, be willing to pay for the dinner. If you want to invite them for drinks, be willing to pay for the drinks. If you want to invite them to a party, be willing to throw the party. Be willing to, manage the party. Hopefully you get my point when I say this. But the key thing to do is follow up. And it's so simple, but no one does it. I don't know why people don't do it. I think people assume that like if you reach out to somebody once, people are just free and ready to be like hung out with. I don't know if that makes sense grammatically, but I think people just assume like, oh, if I reach out to this person, they should be free. And if they're not free, then they don't like me. It's like, no, no, no. People have lives. People got shit going on. People got stuff to do. If you reach out to somebody and they can't hang out, just try again next week or try again next month. Try again in the future. Don't take it personally. And this is what following up is. Reach out to somebody. If they can't come out, cool. Follow up and reach out again in a week. If they don't respond, again, don't take it personally. Some people just don't check their messages that frequently. Some people might see your message, go to respond to it. I'm guilty of this a lot. Go to respond to it. A new notification pops up or someone calls them or something like came to mind. They get distracted. They stop and they forget that they were about to respond to you. So it looks like they left you on red. And even though they meant to reply, they just forgot to. So that's my recommendation for that. Final thing too, when you meet new people, place them in categories. Place them in categories based on like the things you bond with them on. So like you meet people, for example, that like to go out to bars and clubs. If you like to go out to bars and clubs, not everyone you know will also like doing that. So instead of inviting everyone to bars and clubs, invite the people that like bars and clubs. Like, I know that might sound like super straightforward, but you'd be surprised how many people don't think this way. If you like to have discussions with people, of course, the party and bar people might not like having long-term discussions. They might like the high dopamine environment. Cool. Invite the friends that do like discussions to have discussions and don't invite the party people. Video games. Some friends of mine like to play video games. They don't like super like long in-depth discussions and they don't like drinking and partying. Okay, well, invite the video game friends to play video games. Don't invite them for discussions and don't invite them to have parties or two parties or to go out and party. Like, invite people based on what they like. And this is why it's good to go back to your list and like actually understand things about people. Take time to learn about who they are, what they like, what they're interested in. And the reason why I made this step 5 also is because like I put increase your income before this, but I didn't talk about the next step, which is investing. I tend to find that if you make more connections with people, that'll lead to more opportunities and that'll lead to more money. So this is why I've said like focus on getting stable first, then focus on getting relationships. Because once you start to make the relationships, then hopefully if you're a cool person and people like you, they'll give you more opportunities to make more money or you'll start to like come up with ideas together. It'll open the doors to more things. So this is kind of why I put it at step 5. And then the final thing, once you do step 5, invest your money accordingly. Think for the long term. As you improve your other 3 pillars, is what I call those: health, wealth, relationships, begin to work on the infinite goals that I had you create in step 1. And this is how you keep your energy high throughout your entire life because you always are working on something. You always have something to do. You're always striving to reach the ideal version of yourself. You're always trying to reach your vision. And now that you have a little bit of money, now that you're stable and you have friends and you're in good shape, you have all of the resources necessary to get those things done. So again, this is like the last step. Sometimes people want to get rich first and then they want to do like the health and then they want to do like the relationships. I don't recommend that. Get healthy first within reason. Make a little bit of money to be stable within reason. Make the relationships. Then once you do those 3 things, then you focus on getting rich or investing. I think that's the better process to take. So that's kind of my framework. That's what I recommend. Hopefully that was simple enough to follow. to be honest, I think it's super practical. And I think like today, depending on what time of day you're watching this, you could start to implement all these strategies immediately. And I think within like, I've done this myself, within about like 4 to 6 months, if you really stay true to it, you can achieve all these things for the most part. Obviously, you're probably not going to get rich in like 6 months. I'm not rich. So that's unrealistic. Some people could probably do it, but I wouldn't bank on it. But as far as like the just living below your means financially, as far as like meeting new people, and as far as like getting in shape, all of that can be done within like 4 to 6 weeks. And I'm only saying 4 to 6 weeks because getting in shape takes time, especially the aesthetics part. Um, Side note, in my experience, if you're trying to like go from like fat to like fit, so to speak, it usually takes, in my experience, about 6 months to see for you to see results. Other people you will usually see results in about 2 to 4 months. It'll probably take you about 6 to 8 months for you to see the results that you know of your body changing. Um, so that's why I say like give it like 6 to 8 months of doing all these things, and I guarantee you'll like change your life by doing that. And then one last thing, shameless self plug. Two things that'll help. First of all, in order to get all these things done, I think time management is essential. Like you need to manage yourself effectively in order to get in better shape, in order to make more money, in order to have higher quality relationships. These things can all be done, but they require self management, and self management truly is time management. So I created this thing called the Productivity Accelerator Masterclass. It's a free video. It's like 35 minutes. You can watch it. It has my 3P system. There's a link in the bio that'll take you to it. I think it's like the first link. And it'll show you how to structure your day effectively so that way you can get all these things that I mentioned in this video done like easily. And then there's a promotion in the video where you get to work with me one-on-one for a whole month, and I'll sit with you and help you get all these things done. I've done all these things myself, so I can show you exactly the steps that I would take, and I would kind of like guide you through my process of kind of getting this changed lifestyle, getting ahead of most people, getting ahead of 99% of people. Then the second thing, I have a program called the Better Life Blueprint. Again, it walks you through all these steps, all these pillars, as I call them: how to get in better shape, how to diet more effectively, how to make more money, how to increase your credit score, how to improve your finances, how to have better quality relationships, how to meet more people. I even have stuff in there about how to date. I have all of that, 10 years of experience for $7. There's, I think it's about 5 or 6 hours of courses, several guides, some ebooks, and then supplemental materials too, stuff about like how to invest in real estate. But yeah, 10 years of experience condensed into basically a day's worth of content for $7. So highly recommend you check that out if you're interested. But like I said, if you follow the steps in this video alone for like 6 months at least, you'll easily be ahead of 99% of people. So hope you liked this video. If you did, please like it. Please leave your comments below. I'm curious to know your thoughts. And then final thing, please subscribe to the channel if you like the video. It helps boost me in the algorithm, and it helps more people like you who might enjoy my content and get value from my content see my content. So hope to see you in the next video. Peace out. Bye.